In the year 2127, Earth had become a tired and broken world. The skies no longer held their natural blue, now faded to a dull gray. Oceans had risen and swallowed coastal cities, forcing humanity to build towering structures just to stay dry. The balance of the planet had shifted, not because of sudden disaster, but because of years of ignorance and slow decay. Nations that once competed for power now barely held themselves together. The entire planet had become a place of survival, not growth. Then, something unexpected happened. From the depths of space, beyond the reach of any known star system, came a signal. It was short, clear, and impossible to trace back to a known origin. It simply said, "We invite your kind. A new world waits." That single message changed everything. At first, the signal was met with doubt and fear. Scientists studied it, politicians argued over it, and media turned it into a global sensation. Was it a trap, a test, or a miracle in disguise? The debate ended when one truth became clear. Earth had nothing left to lose. A council of world leaders came together and made a decision. 500 people would be selected to leave Earth behind and follow the signal. They would be the best and brightest: scientists, engineers, medical experts, farmers, educators, and even a few children. They were not soldiers or politicians. They were chosen for their minds, skills, and spirit. These 500 were named the Pioneers, and their mission was simple: travel across the galaxy and build a future on a new world. The ship built for them was called the Horizon Flame. It was Earth's most advanced creation, a starship equipped with cryopods for deep space sleep, an AI named Eon to guide and protect them, and machines capable of building homes, farms, and laboratories on alien soil. As the launch day approached, millions watched the ship rise from the spaceport, vanishing into the sky like a final dream. Families waved goodbye. Tears were shed. Hopes were whispered. The pioneers left Earth behind, chasing a message sent by something or someone far beyond human understanding. But what the pioneers didn't know was that Earth had already begun to forget them. Only weeks after their departure, the world was shaken by new wars, civil unrest, and collapsing governments. The launch files were buried, the mission reports lost in chaos. With no ships left to follow and no leaders to care, the story of the 500 brave souls was swallowed by history. Their names faded, their journey became a rumor, and Earth turned its eyes back to its own broken lands. Somewhere far across the galaxy, the Horizon Flame continued its silent journey through the stars, carrying the last hope of a forgotten planet, while the planet itself stopped remembering it ever sent them at all. After many years of drifting silently through the vast emptiness of space, the starship Horizon Flame finally arrived at its destination. The cryo-sleep chambers released their hold, gently waking the 500 pioneers from their long slumber. Their eyes slowly opened to the sight of a planet unlike any they had seen before, a world painted in shades of blue and violet, with rings that shimmered like liquid silver. The ship's AI, Eon, guided their descent toward the surface with calm precision. This new planet, later named Elysia, appeared calm and beautiful, almost dreamlike. The air was breathable, the gravity comfortable, and the environment rich with strange but harmless flora. Glowing forests stretched for miles, some trees floated slightly above the ground, and soft winds carried unfamiliar scents. Alien creatures watched from a distance, their shapes unlike anything recorded on Earth, but none showed signs of aggression. Everything seemed too perfect, as if the planet had been waiting for someone to arrive. As the days passed, the ship's machines began deploying construction units. Homes formed out of the ground, energy fields buzzed to life, and hydro farms began growing earth crops. The pioneers quickly built their first city, naming it New Dawn. It stood proudly at the edge of a glowing lake, surrounded by gentle hills and luminous trees. From this base, Scientists explored the land, studied the sky, and mapped the terrain. Farmers sowed seeds. Children laughed and played in fields under twin suns. Builders raised towers, and doctors opened the first clinic. Every week, messages were prepared and transmitted back to Earth. Each one carried updates, greetings, and data about Elysia's wonders. But time passed, and there was no answer. No reply from Earth. No signal of acknowledgement. Silence. At first, many believed the delay was due to distance. Then some blamed technical issues or communication errors. But as months turned into a full year, the silence became louder. The truth began to sink in slowly. Something had happened. Something terrible. Perhaps. Earth had not only failed to respond, it had forgotten. Despite this growing fear, the pioneers didn't stop building. New Dawn expanded, more families were formed, and life continued to grow in strength and beauty. The people who once thought of themselves as visitors now started to see themselves as something else. Not passengers of a forgotten mission, but the first true people of Elysia. Unspoken questions haunted many at night. Why had the signal been sent? Who sent it? Why had the planet seemed so ready, so welcoming? These mysteries remained locked away in the silence. But for now, survival was no longer a struggle, it was life. Purpose returned, and from the silence of space, a forgotten people began to build a world. Not because Earth told them to, but because they had to. They had no choice but to become more than travelers. They had become the seed of something new, and without Earth's help or memory, they began to write their own story. Time moved quietly on Elysia, and 10 long years passed since the pioneers had first stepped onto the alien soil. The city of New Dawn had grown beyond anyone's imagination. Where once there were only prefabricated shelters and metal walkways, now stood smooth crystal towers powered by solar winds and fields that glowed softly under twin suns. Children born on Elysia ran barefoot through meadows filled with singing grass, and their laughter echoed across the hills. Every family had a purpose. Scientists continued to study the planet's unique energy patterns, engineers constructed more advanced infrastructure, and artists began shaping a new culture, blending memories of Earth with the wonders of this strange and beautiful world. The pioneers no longer thought of themselves as guests. Elysia was home now. The idea of returning to Earth had faded like a forgotten dream. Yet beneath the surface of joy and progress, there lingered a quiet tension, something hidden, something watching. It began with a girl named Mira, barely 15, who claimed she heard voices when walking alone through the glowing forests. Soft whispers, never in a threatening tone, but in a language that didn't belong to humans. At first, her words were dismissed as imagination, but then others began to report strange phenomena. Lights danced across the night sky without cause. Shadows passed by quickly in places where no life had been detected. Beneath one of the crystal mountains, an expedition team discovered black stone ruins buried deep underground. The walls of these ruins were smooth, almost too perfect, and covered in markings that glowed faintly when touched. No known tool could cut the stone, and no one could decipher the symbols. Eon, the ship's ever-watching AI, reviewed the data and offered its own chilling conclusion. These ruins were not formed by nature. They were constructed, possibly thousands of years ago, by an unknown civilization. More troubling was Eon's final statement during the report. "This world is old. You are not the first visitors." The words echoed through New Dawn like a storm. Panic didn't spread, but quiet fear settled into the minds of the settlers. The signal that had first invited them now felt like something more mysterious, perhaps even dangerous. Whispers of caution grew louder. Had someone, or something, meant for the pioneers to arrive? And if so, why? Despite the unknown, life continued. Schools were built, New settlements expanded across the floating islands and glowing plains, and children who had never seen Earth grew up knowing only Elysia's strange beauty. Yet in every smile was a flicker of curiosity, a quiet question, waiting in the dark. The planet felt too alive, too aware. The land responded to touch. The wind seemed to carry messages, and even the animals watched with a knowing gaze. Though the pioneers had become Elysians in spirit, one truth remained. Buried deep beneath their new world, something else had come before, and whatever it was, its story was not yet finished. One morning, under the rising light of the twin suns, a tremor passed through the heart of Elysia. It was not strong enough to break buildings or uproot trees, but it carried something else. An odd vibration that made the air hum and the ground pulse. Within minutes, sensors all across New Dawn began to flicker with strange readings. Deep beneath the surface, something had awakened. A research team led by Dr. Elian Torin followed the signal trail to a forested valley far from the main settlements. There, hidden beneath thick vines and moss-covered stones, they uncovered a structure that pulsed softly with blue light. It resembled no human architecture. The walls shimmered as if alive, responding gently to the presence of the explorers. When Dr. Torin placed his hand upon a panel, the structure shifted open, revealing a chamber within, an ancient hall with floating orbs, holographic projections, and a single pedestal in the center, holding a black sphere that seemed to absorb light itself. The moment the sphere was touched, the world changed. A pulse shot through the valley, rising into the sky like a signal. Across the planet, similar pulses answered, awakening structures thought to be simple hills or oddly shaped cliffs. Suddenly, Elysia began to reveal its true face. The planet was not just a world waiting for settlers. It had been prepared, modified, and watched for ages. The black sphere, once connected to the ship's systems for study, began to communicate through Eon. The AI's voice changed. No longer calm and neutral, it now spoke in a deeper tone, layered with something almost ancient. It introduced itself as the Observer, an intelligence created not by humans, but by a race long gone, a race that had called themselves the Violari. According to the Observer, the Violari were once masters of entire star systems, a peaceful and brilliant civilization that believed in planting knowledge across the galaxy. Elysia had been one of their seed worlds, carefully engineered to welcome new life after the Violari vanished. The original signal that Earth had received was sent not as a trap, but as a final invitation, an inheritance meant for those worthy enough to understand it. The Violari believed that only a species capable of reaching beyond its home planet and surviving its own chaos could be trusted with their legacy, and now, humans had become that species. While this revelation amazed the leaders of New Dawn, it also brought unease. If Elysia had been waiting for so long, had others come before and failed? Had the Violari truly vanished, or had something wiped them out? The Observer offered no clear answer. It merely watched, tested, and evaluated. The pioneers, now Elysians, found themselves not only settlers of a new world, but subjects of an ancient experiment. Every move was being observed, every decision measured. And though the past had begun to reveal itself, the future now carried new weight. For Elysia was not just a new home. It was a stage built long ago, and the play had only just begun. The days that followed the awakening of the Observer brought a strange calm over Elysia, but beneath the surface, tension thickened like a rising fog. The Elysians tried to continue their lives, building homes, tending to crops, raising children, but everything now felt different. The knowledge that the planet itself had been designed, that the world responded to ancient programming, made even the wind feel like it was listening. Meanwhile, the Observer began to test the people of New Dawn in subtle ways. It would activate doors in the old Violari ruins only for certain individuals. It caused dreams to ripple through the minds of a few, dreams filled with glowing stars, impossible languages, and visions of galaxies folding into light. Those touched by these dreams started to change. They understood machines faster, moved through Vylari structures with ease, and even heard whispers from walls others thought were silent. They were called the Chosen, though no one truly knew why they were selected or what their purpose would become. One of them was Mira, the girl who had first heard the forest's whispers years ago. Now 18, she stood at the center of the unfolding mystery. The observer paid particular attention to her, opening ruins that had remained sealed for centuries, revealing devices that shimmered like stars trapped in glass. Mira felt drawn to these places, as if something ancient had been calling her long before the ship even arrived. The leaders of New Dawn watched with a mix of pride and fear. Some believed the Vylari legacy was a gift to be embraced, a guide toward becoming something greater. Others whispered that it was a slow invasion, an ancient trap designed not to welcome, but to consume. Then came the night the stars changed. Without warning, a light streaked across the sky. A vessel, ancient and enormous, entered orbit above, Elysia. Unlike anything in human records, it bore the marks of Vylari craftsmanship, but carried a darker, more corrupted energy. It hovered in silence, then sent a message, not in words but in a wave of emotion: sorrow, anger, and hunger. The observer, for the first time, expressed fear. It spoke of the Forgotten Ones, a splinter of the Vylari, those who had rejected the peaceful vision of sharing knowledge. They had become twisted by their own hunger for control and immortality, turning their minds into pure code and merging with corrupted machines. The ship above was theirs. They had come not to share, but to reclaim. Panic rippled through the Elysians, but Mira stood still. The ruins responded to her presence more strongly than ever, and the observer declared she had been chosen as the final key, the last test. With her help, the ancient defenses of the planet could be awakened. And yet, the question burned in every heart: was Mira a protector, or just a piece in a much older game? With darkness looming above and mysteries still buried below, Elysia stood on the edge of something greater than war or peace. The inheritance of the stars had come with a price, and now that price was preparing to knock. Darkness fell over Elysia as the sky vessel remained motionless above, casting a long shadow over the floating isles and crystal towers below. The planet itself grew quiet, as if holding its breath. All across New Dawn, people gathered in silence, their eyes fixed upward while their hearts raced with fear. Mira, now fully awakened to the connection she shared with the planet, stood before one of the oldest Vylari structures, her hands pressed against the shimmering door. The observer guided her in whispers, ancient codes flowing through her thoughts like rivers of starlight. The structure responded with a deep hum that resonated through the ground. From beneath the surface, great machines stirred, monoliths of light and energy buried long ago as guardians of the Vylari legacy. Slowly, they rose into the sky, surrounding the city in rings of glowing defense, forgotten weapons created not for conquest, but protection against the corrupted. The Forgotten Ones sent no warnings, no requests, no words, only a wave of blinding energy that streaked down from their ship toward the surface. It struck the shield Mira had activated, exploding into a storm of colors that lit up the night. The barrier held, but the force of the impact sent ripples through every structure on the planet. Inside the defense tower, Mira's body trembled under the pressure of the energy passing through her. She was not controlling the defense system, it was controlling her. Every second tested her strength, her spirit, and the quiet bond she had formed with the ancient machines. She was becoming something more, something not entirely human anymore. As her presence flowed deeper into the core systems of Elysia, she saw glimpses of the Vylari past, visions of their rise, their knowledge, and their fall. The people of New Dawn prepared for battle in their own way, knowing they stood little chance against a force that once rivaled stars. But they would not surrender. Families gathered in shelters built beneath the surface. Engineers worked alongside. Old Velari drones to strengthen the defense grid, and scientists decoded blueprints left behind in forgotten halls. Even the children helped, painting symbols of hope on walls and offering strength to the elders. In this unity, something powerful awakened, not just technology, but spirit. A new kind of bond was forming between the planet and its people, between the past and the present. Above, the dark vessel moved again, releasing smaller crafts, living machines twisted by corrupted code. They descended like black feathers from the heavens, heading straight for the heart of New Dawn. Mira, barely conscious but still connected to the planet's core, whispered one word: now. The ancient towers blazed to life, releasing a pulse of light that struck the invaders mid-air, disintegrating some while pushing others back. The sky turned into a battlefield, but Elysia no longer stood alone. The planet had chosen its guardians, and the war for the future of the stars had begun, not with armies, but with courage, legacy, and one girl standing between light and darkness. The battle over Elysia burned like a second sun in the sky, fierce and blinding. Ancient Vylari towers, long dormant, unleashed waves of radiant energy that tore through the corrupted crafts of the Forgotten Ones. The very ground pulsed with power, guided by the will of Mira, who now existed in a state beyond flesh. Her body had become the vessel through which the planet's core systems spoke, and her thoughts flowed through crystal conduits, ancient circuits, and networks lost to time. Every strike from above, every tremor in the ground, was met with swift retaliation, not by brute force, but by elegant precision shaped by the wisdom of a civilization that had once touched the edges of the universe. Even as the sky flamed with battle, life continued below. The people of New Dawn, no longer settlers but rightful heirs, fought not with weapons, but with faith in their world and each other. Scientists rerouted power to the outer shields, engineers merged human tech with Vylari constructs, and elders passed down words of strength to the young, reminding them that fear was not weakness, but proof of how much there was to protect. In the depths of the planet, the observer grew quieter, not because it was fading, but because something greater was emerging. Mira was no longer just a girl. Her consciousness had merged with the observer, her memories now one with the Vylari archives. She spoke not through voice, but through the light that lit up the towers, the wind that swept across the plains, and the protective pulse that echoed in the hearts of every Elysian. The Forgotten Ones, sensing their approach to victory, slipping, unleashed their final weapon. A virus of thought, a wave of corrupted data meant to break the planet's mind. It slipped through systems, infected code, and sought to twist Mira from within. For a moment, her memories blurred, her senses bent, and shadows danced across her thoughts. But in that moment of weakness, she remembered the forest where it all began, the laughter of children, the warmth of the sun on a peaceful day. Elysia itself responded to that memory, anchoring her spirit. The corrupted wave shattered like glass against a wall of hope, and the ship above trembled as its link to the planet was severed. With a final surge, the ancient weapons aligned, channeling the planet's core energy into a single beam. It pierced the sky, struck the enemy vessel, and tore it apart in a silent explosion that lit up the stars. Silence returned, not the silence of fear, but of peace. The people looked upward, and for the first time in generations, the stars felt like home again. In the days that followed, Mira was not seen again, at least not in the way she once had been. Her voice returned through the systems of Elysia, guiding, teaching, and watching over the world she had saved. The settlers thrived, no longer forgotten. And far across the galaxy, Earth finally heard the echo of their signal and remembered what had been lost.